Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump shake hands at a Catholic dinner before going on the attack.
This is the first time ever, that Hillary is sitting down and speaking to major corporate leaders and not getting paid for it.
Why some people in the crowd started to boo. Battle for Mosul. Americans mourn the death of a U.S. soldier. Crisis in Syria. How Catholics are trying to help victims of the civil war. And growing tourist attraction. The Pope's summer retreat is open to the public. On EWTN News Nightly for Friday, October 21st, 2016. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton trade jabs at a charity dinner with Cardinal Timothy Dolan sitting between them, a position he later called the iciest place on the planet. And you can understand why when you hear the presidential nominees attack each other.
It's amazing I'm up here after Donald. I didn't think he'd be okay with a peaceful transition of power.
Hillary accidentally bumped into me, and she very civilly said, "Pardon me." And I very politely replied, "Let me talk to you about that after I get into office."
People look at the Statue of Liberty and they see a proud symbol of our history. Donald looks at the Statue of Liberty and sees a 4. Maybe a 5 if she loses the torch and tablet and changes her hair.
Hillary believes that it's vital to deceive the people by having one public policy and a totally different policy in private. That's okay. I don't know who they're angry at, Hillary, you're right. Here she is tonight in public, pretending not to hate Catholics.
This is such a special event that I took a break from my rigorous nap schedule to be here.
The media is even more biased this year than ever before, ever. Michelle Obama gives a speech, and everyone loves it. It's fantastic. My wife, Melania, gives the exact same speech. And people get on her case.
Cardinal Dolan says at one point during the Al Smith charity dinner, Trump told Clinton, "You are one tough and talented woman." Clinton responded by saying, "Whatever happens, we need to work together afterward." Joining us now is Angela Flood, a member of the Trump-Pence Catholic Advisory Group. Angela, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Lauren. I'm happy to be here.
Why is this dinner so important?
Well, I think as a tradition during a presidential election years, certainly it's something that people on both parties look forward to. I think given the rough and tumble nature of this campaign, it kind of carried into the dinner. But I thought it was, both gave as good as they got, as far as I could see.
Did you think that Trump's joke that, what does he say, Hillary is so corrupt that she got kicked off of the Watergate Commission was appropriate, given the historically non-combative nature of this dinner?
Well, I think if you look at both, I've heard a lot today about what Mr. Trump said, and then I went and looked at what Secretary Clinton said, and I think they both gave as good as they got. I think it was interesting at the end of the dinner that Secretary Clinton chose to wrap up her remarks talking about the historical Catholic bigotry that Catholics faced.
Right. He also said, here she is tonight in public pretending not to hate Catholics. And he was obviously referring to the leaked campaign emails, right, disparaging Catholics. And, you know, despite those emails and her stance on abortion, polls show Catholics have been supporting Clinton.
Right. A poll out today from IBD-TIPP shows that Mr. Trump is leading by 13 points among Catholics. And I wouldn't be surprised if the emails didn't have something to do with that. We got a firsthand glimpse into what her senior advisors really think about Catholics. Secretary Clinton herself last year was recorded in a speech saying that we need to change religious beliefs that don't comport with the secularist agenda. And I think that, along with some other things, like her position on partial birth abortion, which was made so clear at the last debate, are giving Catholics pause.
I talked to Jennifer Palmieri at the debate, and Clinton's spokesperson, and she said that there is no evidence that the leak of those emails has had any effect. But if we're to believe Investors Business Daily's poll, it seems like it did. Thank you so much. Angela Flood is a member of the Trump-Pence Catholic Advisory Group.
My pleasure.
Other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. The fight to take back the Iraqi city of Mosul has claimed the life of an American soldier. It happened in a historically Christian town east of Mosul that has now been taken back from ISIS. The special forces there are fighting snipers and cleaning up explosives, including ones stored in a church. The Knights of Columbus welcomes this liberation, but it cautions that we must not forget the Christian genocide begun by ISIS. And it will continue through attrition and neglect unless the United States and the international community prioritizes those groups and gives financial aid. In Syria, where bombing rains down on the ancient city of Aleppo, food and medical supplies are scarce. Today, the UN Human Rights Chief warns of war crimes of historic proportions in Syria, and he accused all sides of violating humanitarian law, saying the collective failure of the international community to protect civilians and hold this bloodshed should haunt every one of us. The Holy See UN representative echoed the claims and reiterated a plea from Pope Francis, who has urged leaders to call for an immediate ceasefire.
The ongoing conflict has produced a disastrous humanitarian situation, leaving many without the basic needs of food, water, and medicines.
Archbishop Ivan Jurkovic calls the humanitarian situation in Aleppo dire. Earlier today, Wyatt Goolsbee spoke to a Catholic humanitarian organization to see how it's trying to help Syrians survive.
Patrick Nicholson is the Director of Communications for Caritas Internationalis. He joins us now from Rome. Patrick, what is Caritas doing to help people in Syria?
Caritas is able to provide people with health care, with food. We work with very vulnerable families, so we provide them with the money that they can pay rent or fix up their houses, buy warm clothes. And we also work in schools, providing children with access to education, making sure they've got school uniforms and school kits. We provide counselling to school children, so children traumatized by war receive some kind of therapeutic care.
And of course, now there's this humanitarian pause, this break in the fighting. Is that helping at all to help get aid to those who need it?
Well, I think any pause in the fighting is welcome. Caritas already works in 5 parts of the country. The most serious fighting in Aleppo, in East Aleppo, we've had no access there for some time, and still, as yet, we're still unable to get into that area because it's just a pause, and it isn't really open to NGOs or church organizations like Caritas. So we're still hoping that the ceasefire, the pause, turns into something wider and larger so we can start working.
Well, certainly Pope Francis has called for an end to all the violence in Syria. My understanding is that you guys have a prayer initiative and are intending to work with Pope Francis. Tell us about that.
On the 31st of October, Pope Francis will be in Sweden for an ecumenical event with the Lutherans. So the Lutheran and Catholic churches are joining together there at an event in Malmö in an arena with 10,000 people with Pope Francis, and we're all going to say a prayer for Syria together, and we're asking our members and churches, both Protestant and Catholic around the world, to join in those events. So at the same time, say the prayer at your parish or in your school or university or work, and so we can really build momentum up and really use the power of prayer to effect change in Syria.
Well, Patrick, know that our prayers are with you and the prayers of our EWTN viewers. We really appreciate all of the work that Caritas Internationalis does. Patrick Nicholson, the Director of Communications, thanks so much for talking with us.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, a surprising report about communism, why human rights advocates believe young people need a history lesson, and presidential politics, how it's affecting who will control Congress. Pope Francis tweets, "The sick and the poor, as well as the unborn, are all made in the image of God and worthy of the highest respect." Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. It's taken 5 years, but the Vatican and a prominent Sunni Muslim group are formally opening talks in Cairo this weekend. The announcement comes after May's meeting and the embrace by the Pope and the Al-Azhar Grand Imam. A new eye-opening report says millennials are in need of a history lesson on communism. The study finds a third of younger Americans believe more people were killed under George W. Bush than the Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. Wyatt Goolsbee is here. He joins us with a closer look. Wyatt?
Lauren, this survey reveals a distinct generation gap. Younger Americans lack basic information about the history of communist regimes and how many people have been killed or persecuted under communist governments. Human rights advocates say it's time for a wake-up call.
They don't know or understand what communism brings to people. Communism is not just a social or political system. It is fundamentally anti-human.
Human rights advocate Anastasia Lin says she's worried about her fellow millennials. The Chinese-born Canadian citizen says many of her generation do not know what is happening to people living under communist governments, like China.
The most obvious human rights abuses are the suppression of religious minorities, so Falun Gong practitioners, Tibetans, Uyghurs, and house Christians. And in the last couple of years, the persecution of house Christians has drastically increased.
Lin and others who have fled China hope to reverse the trend. According to the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, only 37% of millennials and 38% of Generation Z have a very unfavorable view of communism, compared to 57% of all Americans. 75% of Americans underestimate the number of people killed by communist regimes. Historically, that number is more than 100 million. And approximately 1 in 4 Americans and 1/3 of millennials mistakenly believe more people were killed under George W. Bush than Joseph Stalin. Marion Smith, the foundation's executive director, says they want to set the record straight.
Every communist country where a party came to power, they ended up killing a significant portion of their population as a matter of policy.
Many Catholics cite St. John Paul II, who spoke out openly against communist policies during his papacy. Lin says it's important to speak out against injustice.
I felt my voice is especially important considering there aren't a lot of people speaking up in this demography.
Marion Smith with the Victims of Communist Memorial Foundation tells me they suspected that younger generations might have a softened view towards socialism, but they didn't expect to find more support for quotes from Bernie Sanders than the Bible itself. Lauren?
Wyatt Goolsbee, thank you very much. This week brought us a final, fiery presidential debate. There are 17 days remaining until the election. Joining me now to talk about the impact of the presidential race and its effect on other countries and other races around the country, is Melinda Henenberger, an opinion writer for USA Today, and Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill. Welcome back.
Hey.
Our political panel. You know, Bob, Republicans are losing in key races, especially Pennsylvania, well, maybe not so much anymore,
right.
New Hampshire. What impact did this debate have on these down ballot races? Let's start with Pat Toomey in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pat Toomey is in a very difficult race with Katie McGinty. It's neck and neck. Toomey has actually not said whether he's going to support Donald Trump. He keeps getting pressed on that. He's clearly not a fan, but he has not endorsed him. The fact that Donald Trump basically lost all 3 debates hurts him because the chances of him now winning Pennsylvania are pretty remote, and that hurts Toomey's chances.
Well, same with Kelly Ayotte, right, Melinda?
Right.
She, first of all, said that Donald Trump was a role model, and then she took that back after those November 5th lewd comments came out on the tape, and now she's down 8 points. So is it really hurting both of them not to support Trump?
I think it's definitely hurting her to be associated with Trump. I think that's why she's really suffering, even though she's tried, as you said, to kind of have it both ways. After she said he was absolutely a role model, I think that hurt her. And then the immediate flip-flop, same day, it didn't help her any.
There are a lot of ads being run saying just that. Who is this person who can't make up her mind? You know, Bob, President Obama has said that he is supporting, and we've seen this, Hillary Clinton and down ballot races across the board. How helpful is this to Democrats?
Oh, well, I think it's very helpful because Democrats need turnout. The more people vote, the better for the Democratic Party. And both Barack Obama and his wife, Michelle Obama, who I think is the best surrogate for Hillary Clinton, have really been saying, listen, you can't stay home, you can't vote for the third party. If you do that, that's a vote for Donald Trump. And they're hoping to build this Obama coalition and get them out to vote.
Melinda, on the flip side of that, Donald Trump, some people would say, has been very unhelpful to those down ballot races, but they would blame Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, who has not really said he's going to campaign for Trump. He's even, going to talk about Trump. Tell me more about that and how that affects these races.
I think it's kind of a lose-lose in that those candidates have to walk a very careful line. If they tie themselves too closely to Trump, then they're threatening the support of moderate Republicans and Republicans who are not supporting Trump. On the other hand, if they bolt and are too critical of him, too openly critical, then they're all of those strong Trump supporters are not going to love that. So they're in quite a bind.
Let's go to the dinner. The dinner last night, the Al Smith dinner, we talked to Angela Flood, who is on his Catholic Advisory Board earlier in the program, and she thought it was a wash. What is between the two candidates? They were both sort of nasty, it seems, and did they gain any ground there?
I think it was a loss for Trump. I think he was harsher than Clinton. I do think they both had jabs, and honestly, it was really awkward watching it, and it's really emblematic of this nasty, nasty campaign.
I really gasped watching it because I've seen that dinner a lot of times, and I had never seen anybody there get booed, and I had never seen a speaker so out of sync with the spirit of the evening, which is all good-natured fun, as Trump was. And I really thought there was no comparison between the harshness of him saying she's here pretending she doesn't hate Catholics.
Okay, thank you so much. Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief of The Hill, Melinda Henenberger, USA Today opinion writer.
Thanks.
Up next, the fight against traditional values, how it shapes everything from gender to marriage. And papal retreat, 400 years of history, opens to the public. The St. John Paul II National Shrine in Washington hosts a special event tomorrow, World Youth Day Unite. Coincides with the feast day of Pope St. John Paul II and will include the dedication of a new 11-foot-tall statue of the saint. The celebration begins at noon and ends with a mass at 5 p.m. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lauren Ashburn. A Toronto professor challenges a proposed law requiring the use of gender-neutral pronouns. Jordan Peterson told the Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal that he has no issue addressing people as whatever gender they prefer, but he does object to being forced to use genderless pronouns. Joining us now is Roger Severino, director of the Heritage Foundation's DeVos Center for Religion and Civil Society. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, I have to ask, what are gender-neutral pronouns?
That's a fantastic question. Well, according to the Obama administration, you could be male, female, some combination of male or female, or neither. And according to Facebook, you could have 60 different gender identities. So we've heard two-spirit, agender, gender fluid, transgender, and 54 others.
54 others, I know.
So the question is, do you address a person as he, she, they, here, H-I-R, or Z, Z-E, and the list goes, Z-E, and the list goes on and on. In Canada, it's now going to be enforced, and that's where this issue came from.
Okay,
but it's
so
not
then
just
let's
Canada.
get to that. All right, let's get to that. So the professor is saying that really this is an issue of free speech, and that he can't be forced to say certain words. But if adopted, those words are going to be on documents, correct?
Well, it depends. It depends on the status of the law. The real question here is, can a person act as they want to act and be free to have their own identity as they see fit, yet not force others? See fit.
See fit.
Any identity as they see fit.
Oh, as they see fit. Yes, I thought this was another name.
No,
Sorry.
no.
Okay.
Without forcing others to adopt their identity and affirm it. So, for example, if you have somebody in a school that has been known as male for 10 years, do all the classmates, are they going to be forced to identify that person as female if that male chooses to identify as female? Must they be forced to change and go along with it?
it doesn't seem like anybody can be forced to under free speech laws.
In America, we hope that's the case, but it's more than that. It's more complicated. If you're a business owner in New York, for example, you could be fined $150,000 for misidentifying somebody based on their gender identity. If you do it willfully, on purpose, it could go up to $250,000. So it affects us now.
Isn't this just political correctness run amok?
Indeed it is. And you're seeing this one professor being attacked viciously for taking a stand and say, I just don't want to be forced to violate my own conscience. It's happening here in America with Obamacare's transgender mandate under HHS and at the Department of Education in schools.
All right, Roger Severino, Heritage Foundation, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Australia is one of the last Western countries that has not legalized same-sex marriage, but that could be changing. The country's parliament is considering a bill allowing same-sex couples to get a marriage license. While it's unlikely the upper house will approve the bill, how are Australians responding? Joining us now from Sydney, Australia is Monica Dumit. Welcome to the program, Monica.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're the coordinator of Catholic Talk. You're very plugged into issues there. Is there a lot of public pressure on lawmakers to redefine marriage in Australia?
Absolutely. It's relentless at the moment, and we see it every day in the newspapers and on television. We're told that Australia is the last major Western English-speaking country not to have made this change, and so they're under a lot of pressure.
How is the Catholic Church playing a role in this as the issue is being debated?
Well, the Church is taking a leadership role not only in trying to educate the faithful about the true meaning of marriage, but also speaking to the community more broadly about some of the consequences of redefining marriage for the whole country. But it's been made very difficult recently because those who want to see the law changed are using anti-discrimination laws in order to even keep the Catholic bishops quiet. I'm not sure whether you heard last year, but our bishops issued a pastoral letter and a complaint was made before the Anti-Discrimination Commission, and every Catholic bishop in Australia was told that they had a case to answer to the Anti-Discrimination Commission just for teaching the faithful.
That is quite something. What are the chances of same-sex marriage being legal in Australia, say, in the next 5 years? And what's public opinion?
Well, look, we are, the push is relentless, and we know that those who want to redefine it aren't going to stop until they get their way. We've held the line so far, and there's some really good work being done. I think that public opinion, according to the polls, shows somewhere between 60 to 70% of Australians are in favour of a change, but most of them don't really understand what that will mean for them and for their children. Most of them, at this point, just think their lives will go on as normal if the law is changed. And what we see from big brother countries like the US is that even within a year, we already see changes for the whole of society through the legalisation of the law for some. So, those of us who are working hard on this are trying to help people understand that once you change a law, you change your culture as well, and you change many things about your society. So we're confident that once the Australian people, if they're allowed to hear that message through the silencing by anti-discrimination laws, will actually, those numbers will shift.
Okay,
we think we can hold the line.
Thank you so much, Monica Dumit, coordinator of Catholic Talk in Australia.
Thank you very much.
The Papal Private Summer Retreat is open to the public. Castel Gandolfo has been a resting place for popes dating back to the 17th century and a summer home. Well, the public can see the papal apartment now. Since Pope Francis prefers to stay in Rome, more tours are being offered at this summer retreat. And don't forget, you can also see the gardens. That does it for us for this week. For the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Lauren Ashburn. Good night and God bless.